This month, the month of May, has traditionally been the month of Mary in the Catholic Church, a time to focus on turning to her in our need, especially during this time of great need. The Pope has encouraged all of us Catholics to pray the Rosary more frequently during this month, asking the Blessed Mother to intercede for all those impacted by the coronavirus crisis. So we have the Rosary live streamed every Thursday after the 8:30 morning Mass at around 9 a.m. But during this month, we're adding the prayer of the Rosary on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. in Spanish after the 6:30 p.m. daily Mass in Spanish. And also on Wednesday evening at 6:45 p.m., we'll live stream the Rosary in English after the 6:15 live streamed English daily Mass. Also, we will have various reflections by women of our parish on the Blessed Virgin Mary beginning this Sunday, May the 3rd, and on all the Sundays of May after the 9:30 a.m. live stream Mass. So their reflections will take place at around 10:30 on Sunday morning. The Rosary is both an object that we use to pray with and a prayer itself. So when we say the Rosary in Catholic language, we're talking not only about the prayer of the Rosary, but also the object we use to pray the Rosary, to meditate upon the mysteries of the life of Jesus and the life of Mary. My godmother, my mom's sister, Rita McMahon, gifted me with this Rosary from Ireland. This Rosary stays in my car. I pray with it on short trips from here to the Pastoral Center and other short trips, but also when I was in the Panhandle, long trips and cross-country trips as well. It's seen some wear and tear over the years. Some of the beads are missing, and actually the crucifix that was on the end there at the pendant got caught in the steering column on a drive to Boise City one time. So this has been a Rosary that's been very special to me, and I use it to connect in a very, very powerful way with my Irish ancestors in faith, not just my godmother, but all those who have gone before her in faith. Now, though the history of the Rosary in its present form dates back to St. Dominic and the Dominican monks in the 13th through 15th century, the roots of the Rosary are far more primitive, dating back to 9th century Ireland. That's right, it all began in Ireland. As my Irish mother and my Irish godmother reminded me always, all good things come from Ireland. The monks in 9th century Ireland, as did monks everywhere around the Christian world at that time, prayed the Psalms each day and prayed 150 of those Psalms, all the Psalms, in a week. So the laity, inspired by the monks' devotion, asked for some form that they might pray, that they might join this special prayer of the church. But many people at that time could not read, so there was no way that they could read the Psalms or even memorize them. So an enterprising Irish monk came upon a brilliant idea. He encouraged them to pray a prayer they knew 150 times, the Our Father. Now, the problem is with counting, because we only have 10 of these and 10 of these, so how do you get to 150 without losing count? Well, originally they had 150 pebbles that were placed in a bag to keep track of these 150 Our Fathers, but keeping all those pebbles together surely was a nuisance. So someone came up with the idea of tying 150 knots on a rope, and eventually the rope gave way to strings of 150 beads called pater nosters. That's Latin for Our Fathers. People prayed the Our Father on these beads, 50 at a time, or in multiples of 50, 100 at a time, or 150. And this prayer was referred to as the poor man's breviary, reiterating the connection to the prayer of the church, because the Psalms prayed by the monks and even prayed by priests and deacons and lay people to this day is taken from a book called the Breviary. So this is happening on the Emerald Isle, praying the Pater Nosters, the Our Fathers, 150 of them. Meanwhile, across the water in continental Europe, Christians were developing a similar prayer devotion. But instead of praying the Our Father, they said 50 Aves. The Latin word Ave is Hail, Hail Mary, full of grace. So Elizabeth's words to Mary were added to this prayer in the 12th century, blessed are thou among women, and then the name of Jesus came later during the 13th century. So in the 13th century, the Pater Nosters on the Ireland, and the Aves in continental Europe, they began to merge together. And monks began to add meditative interpretations to their praying of the 150 Psalms. They composed praises in honor of Jesus on these interpretations, and also praises in honor of Mary. So eventually these praises by the monks were joined together, these meditations on the 150 Psalms. And so a monk composed a psalter of 50 thoughts about Jesus and 50 thoughts about Mary, and each collection of these 50 points of meditation was called a rosarium, which is where we get the word rosary, which is rose garden, stands for a rose garden. So the rosary got its name, and the mysteries of the rosary, which you know today, were developed at that time. Later on, the time of a Dominican monk by the name of Alain de Rupe, that's around the 15th century, the rosary that was most popular had 15 decades. And a special thought about Jesus or Mary was considered as each Hail Mary was prayed. Imagine that, 15 decades. Because today, 5 decades is the normal rosary, and that's what actually happened after the Middle Ages. This shorter form of the rosary developed. And a custom of a different meditation for each Hail Mary bead disappeared at that time. In the 16th century, the Glory beads were added, and then the second half of the Hail Mary was added. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now at the hour of our death. The Apostles' Creed and the pendant section were later additions. However, the essential parts of the Rosary, the Hail Marys, the Our Fathers, and the Mysteries, they date back to the Middle Ages. As you can see from this kind of quick history of the Rosary, the prayer which we call the Rosary developed over many centuries in the life of the faithful, dedicated laymen and women who decided to join their prayer to the prayer of the Church. So it was not a surprise, at least not a complete surprise, when a beloved Pope at the end of the 20th century decided to add another development to the prayer of the Rosary. In his apostolic letter, The Rosary of the Virgin Mary, Pope John Paul II proposed a new set of mysteries to go along with the 3 sets that we had before, the joyful, the sorrowful, and the glorious. He proposed adding the mysteries called the luminous, and which would involve the public life of Jesus. These 5 mysteries, as we pray with them today in the Church, the baptism of the Lord, the wedding feast at Cana, proclamation of the kingdom of God, the transfiguration of the Lord, and the Last Supper. So when Catholics today talk about praying the Rosary, we usually mean we're going to take one of these parts, either the joyful or the luminous or the sorrowful or the glorious, and we're going to meditate on the 5 mysteries connected with that particular part. Each mystery including an Our Father, 10 Hail Marys, and a Glory Be. It's what we call a decade of the Rosary. Though the Rosary was an integral part of my life growing up, my parents and my brothers and sisters prayed it often, I never really had a personal devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary until I was in my mid-20s or so. I was on a silent retreat about a year before I was ordained a priest, and while eating lunch in silence, I was looking at a portrait of the Blessed Virgin Mary holding the child Jesus, and it suddenly struck me, as I'm sure it was the Lord speaking to me, about all the Marys in my life. My grandmother, Mary Jacobi, my own mother, Mary McMahon Jacobi, my sister Maureen, that's Irish for Mary, and I realized through them the Blessed Virgin Mary had been with me throughout my entire life. And then I was struck by another revelation as I ate there in silence on that retreat, that I'd been baptized in the Church of Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Sterling, Oklahoma. I'd grown up in the Church of Our Lady of the Holy Rosary in Ardmore, Oklahoma, where I received First Communion and Confirmation. And I was 1 year away from being ordained in the Cathedral of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. It was as if Mary, the Mother of God, was speaking to me on that retreat and assuring me that she had been with me throughout my entire life and that she would go with me forward into the rest of my life. And that she was inviting me to a deeper relationship with her, that I might come to know more fully the love of her Son. For indeed, the mysteries of the Rosary, almost all of them are the mysteries of Jesus' life, are revealed to us in a very special way through the one that was closest to him his entire life, his own mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary. And those mysteries are meant to shed light upon the mysteries of our life, So, for example, the mystery of the visitation, Mary receiving the great good news that she's now conceived, the Son of God runs up into the mountains to her relative Elizabeth, and as she enters that room of Elizabeth's house, it's transformed because she brings with her the very presence of the Son of God in her womb. Elizabeth full of joy, John the Baptist leaping in her womb. That mystery is meant to shed light on the mysteries of the visitations in our life. Every day, the Lord himself visits us through other people, and if we have the eyes of faith to see, then we are able to welcome him as Elizabeth did to her home. Or the mystery of the finding of the boy Jesus in the temple at the age of 12. There have been surely many parents who have gone through that paralyzing fear of having lost a child for a little while, and like Mary, being full of this anxiety about, where is he? How can I find him? What has happened to him? That mystery itself reminds us that Mary understands all parents' struggles, not only with the losing of a child for a short time, but even with the loss of a child through death, that she assures them one day they'll be reunited with their child. And then, just one final example, the Garden of Gethsemane, the sorrowful mystery, the first one, to pray with Jesus in that garden and with the help of Mary to understand that in our struggles to discern the will of God, and our struggles to accept that will of God and surrender ourselves to that will of God, that Jesus, the Son of God, is with us right there because he understands what we are going through. So as the mother of Jesus, the Blessed Virgin Mary knew him better than anyone, and her sole desire is for us to come to know her Son through her, to be drawn deeper into union with him. As you pray the Rosary this month, I invite you to that invitation of Mary, to come to her and with her help to come more fully to her Son and to surrender your life in love to him who is our resurrection and our life. I'd like to conclude with a special prayer that the Pope wrote. He wrote actually 2 prayers for this month of the Mary to pray at the end of the Rosary. This is the longer one. It goes like this. In the present tragic situation, when the whole world is prey to suffering and anxiety, we fly to you, Mother of God and our Mother, and seek refuge under your protection. Virgin Mary, turn your merciful eyes towards us amid this coronavirus pandemic. Comfort those who are distraught and mourn their loved ones who have died, and at times are buried in a way that grieves them deeply. Be close to those who are concerned for their loved ones who are sick and who, in order to prevent the spread of the disease, cannot be close to them. Fill with hope those who are troubled by the uncertainty of the future and the consequences for the economy and employment. Mother of God and our Mother, pray for us to God, the Father of mercies, that this great suffering may end and that hope and peace may dawn anew. Plead with your divine Son as you did at Cana, so that the families of the sick and the victims be comforted and their hearts be open to confidence and trust. Protect those doctors, nurses, health workers, and volunteers who are on the front line of this emergency and are risking their lives to save others. Support their heroic effort and grant them strength, generosity, and continued help. Be close to those who assist the sick night and day, and to priests who, in their pastoral concern and fidelity to the gospel, are trying to help and support everyone. Blessed Virgin, illumine the minds of men and women engaged in scientific research, that they may find effective solutions to overcome this virus. Support national leaders, that with wisdom, solicitude, and generosity, they may come to the aid of those lacking the basic necessities of life, and may devise social and economic solutions inspired by far-sightedness and solidarity. Mary, most holy, stir our consciences so that the enormous funds invested in developing and stockpiling arms will instead be spent on promoting effective research on how to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. Beloved Mother, help us to realize that we are all members of one great family, and to recognize the bond that unites us, so that in a spirit of fraternity and solidarity, we can help to alleviate countless situations of poverty and need. Make us strong in faith, persevering in service, constant in prayer. Mary, consolation of the afflicted, embrace all your children in distress and pray that God will stretch out his all-powerful hand and free us from this terrible pandemic so that life can serenely resume its normal course. To you who shine on our journey as a sign of salvation and hope, we do entrust ourselves, O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary. Amen.
Amen.